Picture this. It's 1 in the morning on a warm July night in a small Quebec town. Inside the Musée Cafe, about 80 people are winding down their Friday evening. Couples on the patio sharing drinks, musicians packing up, and waitresses clearing tables. Then, suddenly, the sound of screeching metal cuts through the night. This is not the rumble of the normal freight trains that pass through town daily. This is loud. Then, fire. So, stow your tray tables, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for some extreme turbulence. Because this is final boarding call. Hello and welcome to Final Boarding Call. I am your disaster-obsessed host, Alice.
And I'm still Zach, not obsessed with any disasters. I hope you all have a great day. Maybe even a great life. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, that is the weirdest intro you've ever done in our 60 whatever episodes we've done. No,
I'm going to be honest. I feel a little
past
weird.
You feel weird right now?
No, all the
funky?
time.
Oh,
I'm not the guy that wants to hear my voice, and I'm right in my ears right now.
yeah, you are. Well, hopefully you want to hear Zach's voice because this is an episode and we are going to dive in. Before we do that, please remember to rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend. Tell a friend. Tell a friend. I just hypnotized
Who's being
you.
weird now?
Now I just hypnotized you into telling a friend. All right, let's... That is not how it works. Let me tell you our sources for this episode. In case you couldn't guess from the intro, this here's a choo-choo train episode. Choo-choo. So we've got the Transportation Safety Board of Canada's 181-page investigation report. Just some light reading. Public health case studies published in Disaster Health Journal. We have the trial testimony. Spoiler alert, there is a trial. And then I've got some reports from the Globe, Mail, CBC News. There's also a book on this episode as well. So, and I'm not going to read the title because it kind of gives some stuff away. So anyway, all of that is in the show notes. Go check it out. And this episode takes place in Quebec, and there are French words in here. And I know we just did an Air France episode, and I don't know why I hate myself this much, but I am about to butcher some more beautiful French words. So please bear with me. Know that there is no malice. There is no ill intent. It is just that, for me, this is not my area of genius. Lac-Mégantic. That's how I'm going to say it because I'm not French.
Say it like an American.
Yeah. It's a picturesque town of 6,000 people in Quebec's eastern townships, right on the shores of the lake that shares its name. The Chaudière River flows right through the town. It is the kind of place where generations of families have lived, where kids grow up swimming in the lake in summer, and where Friday nights mean gathering at the Musée Cafe for live music and good company. Would live here. It sounds perfect.
Well, I'm in because of the Canada Gooses.
I love that. Are you going to finish it?
If you've got a problem with Canada Gooses, you got a problem with me, and I suggest you let that marinate.
All right, name the reference. We'll throw you some stickers. On Friday, July 5th, 2013, the Musée Cafe is buzzing. Earlier in the evening, nearly 180 people had filled the space for dinner. But by midnight, the crowd is thinned to about 80 patrons, split between those inside and those that are outside, enjoying the beautiful fresh air on the terrace. Folk singer Guy Bolduc and drummer Yves Boulay have just finished their set. Their bandmate, Yvonne Ricard, who I think I nailed it. Correct me in the comments, but I think I may have nailed that. Well, their bandmate has stepped outside for a smoke. Waitress Andrea Sevigny, the 26-year-old nursing student, is clearing tables, thinking about her upcoming hospital shifts. 18-year-old Elodie Turcotte, working her first job at the cafe, is learning the ropes from more experienced staff. So the bar's owner, who is Yannick Gagné, has left for the night, and around midnight, he emailed his pregnant wife, Lysandra. So she's collecting cover charges at the door, and he emails her, "Come home." One regular patron, waitress Corinne Blanchette, almost went to the cafe that night. She was off duty, but she considered meeting a friend there. She made a deal with herself. If she found a parking spot right in the front, she would go in. I love this because I
also
I
test
feel
fate
that.
that way with
I
certain
know.
things.
Yep, same.
Like, oh, if this works out, then I'll do it.
Well, guess what? There were no spots.
So she went home.
Her fate was not to go in. So to understand how this night turned tragic, we're going to rewind 3 hours to the freight station, which is about 7 miles, 11 kilometers west at Nantes. At 11 p.m., a massive freight train pulls in. It's nearly a mile long. That's a big boy. And it weighs around 10,290 tons, which for our American friends is 22.6 million pounds. It consists of 5 locomotives and 72 tank cars, each of these holding 30,000 gallons of crude oil from North Dakota.
That's how much fits in the tank cars? Wow, I've always wondered.
Yes. Each of them, 30,000 gallons. So this is crude oil from North Dakota's Bakken Formation, which is an especially volatile petroleum known for its low flash point, which is fancy talk for goes up in flame very easily. This train is operated by Montreal, Maine and Atlantic Railway, or MMA. A company The Globe and Mail, which are two of my sources, described as one of the most aggressive cost cutters in the rail industry. So do not sue me. Sue
That's somebody
Globe
else's words. We
and
just repeated them.
Mail, please. By 2013, MMA had recorded 36.1 accidents per million miles traveled. Now,
that doesn't sound that bad.
well, let me tell you what the national average is, because it's bad. The national average is only 14.6.
Okay, so when you're 22 higher,
it's not
more
good.
than double. It's a problem.
That's bad. The railway owned a former Canadian Pacific Main line built in the 1880s, and much of the track was in what investigators would later describe as marginal condition. Speed reductions were required on 23 portions of the line, including an 8 kilometer per hour limit at one section.
That's pretty slow.
That's so slow. The crude oil had originated in North Dakota, traveled by Canadian Pacific Railway to Montreal, and was then handed off to MMA as a subcontractor to complete the journey to an Irving oil refinery in New Brunswick. In the 9 months before this disaster, 67 trains had carried 3,830 rail cars of this volatile Bakken crude through Lac-Mégantic. It had become routine. Operating this train alone is 59-year-old engineer Tom Harding. So,
Tom.
He's alone. That's an important thing to remember.
Especially for a very volatile thing. He's alone.
Alone. Harding is the only person on a 10,000-ton train carrying explosive material through very populated areas. This is what the industry calls single-person train operation, or SPTO. And MMA was the only railway in Canada allowed to run trains this size, carrying this type of cargo with just one crew member. Think about what that means. There's no one to verify brake calculations, no one to monitor the locomotive while you're walking the length of the train, applying handbrake, which we just covered an episode about that. What happens when you just get off the train? Woof. And there's no one to notice problems developing. It's just Tom and a mile-long bomb on wheels.
Yeah, sounds right.
So here's the plan. Park the train, secure it, and another crew takes over in the morning.
Easy
Boom.
enough.
It's routine. Tom has done this countless times. But the lead locomotive has been belching excessive smoke all evening. It's not feeling well. Here's something crucial that Tom Harding doesn't know. 8 months earlier, in October 2012, this same locomotive, number 5017, had suffered an engine failure and gone into MMA's Derby, Maine repair shop.
Oh.
The engine block was damaged. A proper fix would have meant replacing components, significant time, and money.
The dollars are the problem.
But MMA was under intense financial pressure.
And they said, throw some head gasket sealer in that girl and get her back out there.
Oh, gosh. They're barely profitable at this point, and they are operating on very thin margins. So, mechanics rebuilt the damaged area using a polymer material. I know, Zach has given himself a fist bump, and so am I. So, it is essentially a hardening filler that didn't have the strength or the durability that the job actually required.
But it's a solid temporary.
They literally slapped a Band-Aid on that thing. It got the locomotive back in service quickly and cheaply, and that is what mattered to MMA. Then, in March 2013, the same spot developed an oil leak because it's not a permanent fix. And someone tried to solve it by tightening the cam bearing mounting bolt.
I guess I don't know where the block failed, so I can't really judge that, but it feels wrong.
Well, tightening that bolt against the weak polymer repair
Cracked it.
overstressed the bearing, and the bearing fractured. So here's why that matters, folks. That cam bearing helps keep engine oil flowing to the top of one of the engine's power assemblies. When it fractured, the oil supply dropped. Without enough lubrication, valves were damaged, a piston crown was punctured, and engine oil began flowing where it never should. Pooling inside the body of the turbocharger, for instance. A cheap repair, made worse by an over-tightened bolt, had quietly turned locomotive 5017 into a fire waiting to start.
Oh no.
Now, on this July evening, that failure is about to play out. Oil is leaking and burning. When Harding reports the excessive smoke to the rail traffic controller, he is told that they'll check on it in the morning. Like, it's fine.
We'll check
Yep.
it.
Yep. So here's where understanding train brakes is going to be important. So let's dive into this together. Trains use two systems. Air brakes maintain constant pressure, like keeping a balloon inflated, and they need a compressor powered by the locomotive's engine. Handbrakes are purely mechanical, requiring about 3 minutes of hard physical work each to apply. Tom Harding, applies air brakes to all cars, then handbrakes on the 5 locomotives, the remote control car, and the buffer car. So this is 7 handbrakes total. He leaves the lead locomotive running to power the compressor and
keep the air flowing.
Yes, and performs a brake test. He tries to move the train with the locomotive to make sure that the hand brakes alone will hold it. The test seems to pass, except what Tom doesn't realize is that he never released the locomotive's air brakes during the test. So he's actually testing both systems working together.
Uh-oh.
So no wonder it passed.
Because it had 90-something brakes
Correct.
instead.
Correct. It was not just the hand brakes alone that he was testing. So he contacts the rail traffic controller to report the train is secure and takes a taxi to a hotel. Boom.
And he
He's
slept
done.
like a baby.
Yeah. When the taxi arrives, the driver notices oil droplets from the locomotive landing on his windshield
The driver of the taxi?
and questions. Yeah. When the taxi arrives.
Oh, I guess because the engine was running and it was spitting oil out of the cracked block.
Yeah.
Okay. I could vibe with that.
Yeah, the driver.
Originally, I was thinking like drips from above. I'm like, now this story doesn't make sense. I thought it was made up all of a sudden.
No, and we're going to say this is door-to-door taxi service. That taxi driver was like, I am here. You can hop into this taxi from the train.
I'm built different. I'm already here.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this guy is questioning whether the locomotive should be left running. He's like, this seems extremely weird. You are exiting this running locomotive. It is getting oil here. And Tom tells him that he's already reported it to MMA and been told to leave it. The taxi heads for the hotel. So, even a taxi driver
Can
is
tell this is
able
wrong.
to see that something is very, very wrong. But he's talking to an experienced engineer. And the engineer is like, look, I am following procedures. I reported
I told
this.
them and they don't care.
Correct. He's doing what the company told him to do. So as Tom Harding checks in, witnesses see thick smoke and sparks. By 11:45 p.m., the locomotive catches fire.
And that's not even in the fuel yet.
At 11:50 p.m., local firefighters respond. They make a logical decision. Shut down the engine to stop fuel feeding the fire. It's standard procedure, and it also makes sense. They also move the electrical breakers in the cab to the off position to eliminate an ignition source.
Love it.
All of it in keeping with railway instructions. The controller calls Tom Harding about the fire and tells him to go back to sleep. You're not needed here. We just want to let you know that your train's on fire. An MMA track foreman arrives, confirms everything looks safe, and everyone leaves. Crisis averted, right?
Yeah.
We're good.
You turned it off. It's fine.
There was a fire. We shut down the source. We're good. However,
now there's no air keeping the air brakes going.
When you shut down a locomotive, you shut down its air compressor. Boom, boom. The air brake system starts slowly losing pressure through tiny leaks. Leaks that normally wouldn't matter because the compressor consistently replenishes the air. At 12:56 a.m., about an hour after firefighters leave, the air pressure drops low enough that the combination of air brakes and hand brakes can no longer hold the 10,290-ton train on a slope. And the train does what trains do.
I'm just going to say, for all the people that are just like, well, just make it not have leaks. You know how hard it is to make an air compressor have zero leaks between all the lines and the connections and the fittings? Harry Potter would say, it's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands.
That's good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
Except now nobody can guess the movie because you gave it away. So
Sorry.
Next time, do better.
Wow. Divorce.
One of the firefighters, Jean-Luc Montignier, nailed it, is heading home after helping put out the fire when he stops at a railway crossing on Route 161, just southeast of where the train had been parked. The crossing signals activate, warning of an approaching train. He waits, but he hears no horn. He sees no lights. And after waiting, thinking that the crossing is malfunctioning, he starts to drive across. Just as he clears the crossing, the train passes through at very high speed. No headlight, no horn, just a wind and the screech of metal on metal. So our friend here, Jean-Luc, recognizes it as the same train that he had just helped save from a fire. He immediately returns to Nantes, the town that they were in, to alert the others. But by then, The train is already gathering momentum on the long downhill slope toward Lac-Mégantic. So, geography lesson. Can't pronounce either of these towns, but I'm going to tell you how far away they are from each other. So, we've got Nantes and we've got Lac-Mégantic, and the track drops over 7 miles between these two towns. The average descending grade is 0.94%, so just under 1%, but the steepest grade is 1.32. So that might not sound like a ton, but if you are as heavy as a train
Mm-hmm.
and you've got no brakes, that is going to make quite a difference. Gravity, baby, gravity. So we still have 7 handbrakes, technically. I said no brakes. That was a lie. We've got 7.
7 mediocre
They are
handbrakes.
not doing much, but we've got them. Witnesses living along the tracks report that their houses shake violently, much more than the usual freight trains. One witness will later recall the sound being like never before. Trains usually pass through this area at about 10 miles per hour. Our train is accelerating toward 65.
Ugh.
You are gonna lose your license. The railway had chosen not to install track circuits, which are sensors that would alert traffic control to a runaway train, to save money. So no warning system exists. The ghost train is invisible to everyone except those who happen to see or hear it. At the Musée Cafe, patrons on the terrace hear the sound first. An infernal noise of screeching wheels grinding metal. One patron is leaving the bar when he notices the train approaching. He would later describe a black blob coming out of nowhere at a hellish speed. Wheels throwing off white smoke. No lights, no signals, no warning. He realizes what's about to happen. These aren't empty boxcars. These are oil tankers. And at this speed, they are going to derail. He yells at his friends that the tankers are going to blow. He runs. Not everyone hears his warning. Not everyone has time to react. At 1:14 a.m., the unmanned train hits the sharp curve in downtown at 65 miles per hour. The front locomotive actually makes it through, but 72 tank cars cannot navigate a sharp curve at that speed. The buffer car derails first, dragging the tank cars behind it. They pile up like an accordion, rupturing, spilling roughly 1.6 million gallons of crude oil in seconds. And then they ignite. People at the Musée Cafe describe seeing the tank cars leave the track, and then almost immediately, a blanket of oil generating a ball of fire 3 times the height of the downtown buildings.
Wow.
The explosion comes in waves. 4 to 6 distinct blasts as tank cars rupture and oil escapes along the train's path. The heat is so intense that it is felt over a mile away or 2 kilometers away.
Good Lord.
People jump from the 3rd floor of buildings to escape the flames. The burning oil flows over the ground like a tsunami of fire.
It's an interesting visual
Yeah.
in my head for
Yeah.
sure.
It's crazy. It's so much liquid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so much liquid, and the liquid is on fire.
And it's a liquid that is hard to put the fire out.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So this is how much liquid there is, you guys. It begins pouring into the town's storm sewer system and erupting from other drains, manholes, chimneys, and
as the gases
basements
go. Yeah, that
throughout
makes
the
sense.
area. This is crazy. Inside the Musée Cafe, Some patrons feel the tremors and think that there's an earthquake happening. Some run outside. Others are told the tremors are an earthquake and that it's actually safer to shelter under a table. Of those who went out, not all of them survived. Some could not outrun what survivors later call a tsunami of fire, which, yes, is so hard to visualize and picture, but that I bet that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Between the liquid, the gas that it is creating, it is just so much fuel, literal fuel for this. So the folk singer and his drummer who were performing at the cafe both passed away. Their bandmate, who stepped outside to smoke, actually survived. The waitresses that I talked about earlier both passed away as well. And then the bar's owner reportedly rushes back into the bar trying to save his wife, and they both die as well. I know, this is horrible. I am so sorry, but this is not a happy story. This one is horrible. 47 people die in this accident, and there was nobody on this train. That is what's crazy. 47 people perished. 5 locomotives, having made it through the curve. This is what's crazy. So there were
So 5 did make it through past the curve?
Well, remember, it wasn't just the fuel tanks. There were also locomotives mixed in with this lineup.
7 of them.
Yes. So I think there were 5 locomotives total, weren't there?
I thought it was 7, but that's fine.
Okay. Well, I have written here in my notes that the 5 locomotives, having made it through the curve, separate from the derailed tank cars, and they continue rolling merrily along their way.
Well, the only reason I question is because I've never seen 5 locomotives in a row.
Yeah, I don't know how that lineup.
Because normally you've got tug cars and push cars.
Train people.
It ain't me.
Tell me what this would look like. What is standard protocol for the breakup between locomotives and just normal cars? Because in this case, they separate, they say adios muchacho, and they continue on a tour through the town. They cross the river bridge, and they finally come to rest on the east side of town. They're intact, and they are still on the tracks as if nothing insane had just happened. Meanwhile, behind them, downtown is on fire. At the Granite Hospital, staff go to code orange, that's the code for emergency protocol for mass casualties.
Oh.
They are prepared for hundreds of injured. Ambulances on standby, operating rooms are ready, but as the night wears on, a grim reality sets in.
Nobody was able to make it in because they were all already gone.
Oh, Zach, yes. So the quote from this Canadian Red Cross volunteer says, "No wounded, they're all dead." The hospital receives exactly 1 patient with serious injuries that night. And it is an off-duty Musée Cafe cook who was on the terrace when the train derailed and suffered second-degree burns to one arm. Everyone else either escaped unharmed or died. There was no middle ground. About 150 firefighters are dispatched, some of them from as far away as Maine.
Oh, wow.
Yes. We are talking international support to help fight this thing. So there are other towns across the border that go to help Canadian neighbors. So they describe arriving at a war zone where the ground itself is on fire because oil has seeped into the sewers. The fires burn for nearly 2 full days.
Wow.
The heat is so intense. The contamination is so severe that responders can only work in 15-minute shifts. This is crazy. The heat is so intense
that professional firefighters can only work for 15 minutes at a time.
It is insane. The air is thick with benzene, which is a known carcinogen, along with other toxic compounds. On Saturday night, special fire retardant foam has to be brought in from a refinery in Lévis, which is about 80 kilometers away. The fire chief accepts 30,000 liters of foam at a cost of about $300,000, which is money that this very small town
Doesn't
does
have.
not have.
Yeah.
No. But what choice do you have? Your town is literally burning to the ground.
Yeah, you stop the fire regardless of
No.
cost.
Put it on a credit card. The fire, don't actually do that. That's not financial advice. The fire isn't finally extinguished until Sunday evening, July 7th, which is nearly 48 hours after it began. So 42 bodies are recovered and transported to Montreal for identification. And this is a process that takes months because with burn victims, you have to resort to other means of identification rather than just visual.
Yeah, dental and all kinds of stuff.
Yes. 39 are identified by late August of 2013. The 40th is not identified until April 2014 because of the condition of the remains.
Oh, man.
5 bodies are never found. Investigators believe that they may have been completely consumed,
By fire.
basically cremated.
Mhm.
Oh, gosh.
Honestly, with that fire being as crazy as it was, I'm surprised that it was only 5 of them.
I guess that's fair. 40 buildings in the town center are destroyed, period. No longer exist in any way, shape, or form. Another 36 of the 39 remaining buildings in the red zone will have to be demolished due to petroleum contamination. Yeah, the oil seeped so deeply into the structures that they can never be made safe. The town's library, post office, a historic former Bank of Montreal building dating to the 1800s.
Oh, man.
Gone. More than 100 businesses are destroyed, displaced, or rendered inaccessible. And here's a detail that speaks to how far this disaster reached. 2 of the town's 3 notary offices were destroyed by fire. Only 1 document vault survived, and that means the last wills and testaments of some of these victims were lost. That became a real issue, which is crazy to think about.
Mhm.
Yes, their final wishes were literally burned away. At 1:47 a.m., Tom,
Which is the original conductor.
this
or
is the
engineer.
guy that pulled this train into the station. He's evacuated from his hotel. He calls the controller and describes everything on fire. About 40 minutes later, he learns the awful truth that it was his train. And he says, this is a quote from him, "It was secure when I left. Holy shit." And what else do you say? I mean, that guy really thought that he had done all the brake protocol. The Transportation Safety Board arrives at a scene so heavily contaminated that investigators can only work in 15 minutes because of contamination. Their eventual 181-page report, which I read through, read being generous. I did my best. It's a long report. It will identify 18 distinct causes and contributing factors. Early on, MMA pushes a simple narrative. Hey, this guy over here, he didn't apply enough handbrake. He violated procedures. Tom Harding is at fault. They threw him right under the train tracks. MMA's president visits the town and it does not go well.
I believe that.
He announces the railway has suspended Harding for allegedly improperly setting the handbrakes. But luckily for us, the investigators, they aren't buying that very simple explanation. And our story becomes far more complex. So let's start with the handbrakes. Company guidelines stated that for a 72-car train, 9 handbrakes should be applied, not 7. But here's where it gets interesting. The Transportation Safety Board determined that even 9 would not have been enough.
Okay.
Factoring in the grade, the train's weight, and the brake testing, investigators calculated that the accident scenario would have required roughly 14 to 20 handbrakes to hold that big-ass train in place.
I always have a hard time trusting what the people are saying when they say 14 to 20. Like, this number or one much bigger would do it.
This number or almost double this.
Yes.
So, and Tom Harding working alone would have needed to spend a long stretch of hard physical labor applying that many. Roughly 3 minutes of effort per brake. That's
an hour of work.
Yeah. But nobody even told him that he needed that many.
Correct.
The procedure that he followed, 7 brakes, is what he had been trained to do.
You're off
You're
the
good.
hook on that.
You're off the hook.
Yep.
Next, the failed locomotive. That cheap polymer repair to the engine block, made worse by the over-tightening of a bolt that fractured the cam bearing, is ultimately what set the fire in motion. Oil leaked into the turbocharger. It overheated. It ignited. I'm guessing they did not have a built-in fire compression system. They didn't. That would have cost money. Does that exist? So many questions. Train people, let me know.
Does what part exist?
Fire suppression exist for trains?
Oh, I'm sure it's the same as every other kit for like cars and everything else.
Cool.
Just more nozzles.
Love it.
And heavier bottles.
Yeah. Had MMA paid for a proper repair in the first place, there would have been no fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There would have been no shutdown, and the air brakes would have held all night. Investigators discover multiple backup safety systems that also either were failed or disabled. MMA had instructed staff not to use the automatic brake system because releasing brakes to restart took too long. The penalty brake that should have engaged when the locomotive shut down did not activate. MMA allowed trains to be parked on the main line instead of requiring sidings with derails, devices that would have physically stopped a runaway train. So that's also a good question. This thing was just parked in the middle of the road, essentially.
Never heard of wheel chocks?
And then there is the crew of 1. So 2 people provide redundancy, drink. 1 performs the brake test, the other one verifies. The absence of a second person is a critical safety layer being ignored at a moment when it really mattered. And then, this is the best, the regulatory failures. For years, Transport Canada, the federal agency responsible for railway safety, had flagged MMA as a company with an elevated risk of requiring more frequent inspections. So they were literally like, problem child.
But they still didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, between 2004 and 2012, it conducted numerous inspections and repeatedly reprimanded MMA for safety violations, particularly around train securement, LOL, at the location where this train was. It documented 129 separate safety violations over that period, but not a single fine was ever issued. Not one. Transport Canada had adopted a policy that it called cooperative compliance. There's a really bad Canadian accent there, but it basically means that working with companies to help them improve rather than punishing them.
Sounds like gentle parenting.
Yeah, it kind of is. The gentle parenting of the train industry. The idea was that collaboration would be more effective than enforcement. So what that meant is that MMA would be cited, told to submit a plan to fix it, and then nobody would do anything about it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Transport Canada also never caught or chose to ignore that MMA had changed its procedures to prohibit use of the automatic brake system. It never properly oversaw the single-person operation. all of these balls got dropped. The investigation reveals MMA had what the report calls a weak safety culture, driven by aggressive cost cutting. And a former MMA engineer had warned back in 2010 that with single person crews, so much could go wrong, and that the company's entire approach was about cutting, cutting, cutting. So, the TSB's core conclusion here: the disaster resulted from leaving a train unattended on a main line, a failure to set enough handbrakes, and a lack of backup safety mechanisms. But underneath it was a cascade of systemic failures. In May 2014, MMA is charged with 47 counts of criminal negligence.
Hell yeah.
But the railway isn't the only defendant. Engineer Tom Harding, rail traffic controller Richard Labrie, and manager of train operations Jean Desmontreux is also arrested. Harding, taken from his home by a SWAT team in front of his neighbors, and charged with 47 counts of criminal negligence causing death, which carries a potential life sentence.
I mean, anything with 47 has got to be something like that.
No, Tom's having a bad day, but not as bad as the people who died while trying to hang out and listen to music. The arrests spark immediate controversy. Some residents are satisfied that bringing somebody to justice is what we got to do. Someone's being held accountable. But many are skeptical. They see 3 frontline workers who are being prosecuted while executives at this company are not.
Yes.
The company is being charged.
The company makes them do these things, except only the people that did it and the company as a whole are charged. While
correct. And not only that, but we just reviewed how the regulators were like, no, that's naughty. Don't do that.
You share your toys.
Yeah. Why aren't they being charged? They have documented records of this company shitting the bed. None of them are on trial. So you can understand why people are frustrated with the way this turned out. The trial begins in October 2017, and it lasts for months. Testimony lays bare the full extent of MMA's failures and Transport Canada's inadequate oversight. Former employees describe a workplace with little regard for safety standards and no budget for training, where staff were told to keep trains moving no matter what. The defense argues the 3 men had inadequate training and simply followed company regulations. They were set up to fail by a system designed to cut costs.
Yeah.
On January 19th, 2018, after 9 days of deliberation, that's a lot of deliberation.
Yeah,
9
you're
days.
holding a lot of people's lives in your hands.
The jury returns its verdict: not guilty on all counts for all 3 defendants. There's an audible gasp in the courtroom. Then there are tears of relief. Whew. Yeah. The mayor captures what many feel. So this is the mayor of the town that burned down. It was impossible that 3 men alone created what happened here. That's
completely valid.
Mayor. For much of the community, these were workers doing their job, while the company and the regulators who permitted one-man crews, ignored mechanical defects, and failed to enforce safety rules escaped justice. So that's something. MMA had declared bankruptcy in August 2013, just a month after the disaster. It had $25 million in insurance. The cleanup cost was $200 million. A class action lawsuit eventually produced a $450 million settlement fund. But the human cost can't be measured in dollars. 2,000 people were evacuated, a third of the town. Some couldn't return for months. Others came home to find the petroleum smell permanently embedded in their foundations or their basements, bringing chronic respiratory problems and lasting anxiety. 20 families had no home to return to at all. About 100 liters of oil spilled into the lake and the river, forcing downstream towns like St. George, 80 kilometers away, to shut off their water intakes and rely on bottled water for weeks. Public health researchers found that a year later, among those with intense exposure, 13 reported anxiety disorders and 17 reported alcohol abuse, with depression rates twice as high among non-exposed residents. And follow-up studies years after showed that nearly 70% of highly exposed seniors still lived with PTSD symptoms. So this is just a really nasty one. But there were some regulatory changes. So Canada banned one-person crews on trains carrying hazardous cargo. Boom. Across the board. We don't care what your company is, blah, 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 not allowed. Both the US and Canada began phasing out the old tank cars that ruptured so easily. But in the US, the two-person crew requirement was later shelved, advanced brake requirements were repealed, and rules requiring crude oil to be stabilized before transport were also abandoned. America. In Canada, the promised railway bypass to move trains away from downtown Lac-Mégantic took more than a decade to even begin, which means that to this day, residents watch trains carrying crude oil roll right through the center of their just rebuilt town. The tracks literally run past the spot where the Musée Cafe once stood. So the town was rebuilt. A new library opened, stocked with 100,000 donated books.
Nice.
A new Musée Cafe opened in 2014, and a memorial stands where the old downtown once was. But as public health researchers noted, you can rebuild buildings, you can't rebuild what trauma takes away from a community. So, Zach, this is obviously a devastating and crazy story, but that's what I've got for you today. This one's wild.
Well, that is a lot. That's a bunch of really big pills to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that story just keeps on telling you that the people want what they want. And the best position you can be in is to be a COO or CEO or, any C-suite person at any company, no matter how terrible they are. And you'll make all of your money and then never have any charges when really bad things happen.
It's really crazy. Well, anyway, folks, if you enjoyed the telling of this story, if you're a train nerd, please go ahead and rate, review, tell a friend. We're on the social medias, but my favorite's always getting emails from you. So go ahead and drop us an email, finalboardingcallpodcast@gmail.com. And join us next time when we'll be exploring another transportation disaster story. Until then, remember to stow your tray tables, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for the unexpected, because not every trip reaches its final destination. Goodbye.
Goodbye.